Welcome to Win the Day from Back to the Bible. I'm your coach, Pastor Nat, and today we will talk about Paul's prayer for love and living. When a person wants to do something that they shouldn't, they do it away from watching eyes. They hide the evidence so they don't get caught. They hope and they pray that they will get away with their actions as long as they can. I hate to admit it, I've done it. Chances are you've done it. But this practice should not be what we do as Christians. The Apostle Paul prayed for his spiritual children, and one element of his prayer was for their holiness while waiting on Jesus. It was a prayer for loving and living. Here's Paul's prayer in 1 Thessalonians chapter 3, beginning in verse 11. Now may our God and Father himself and our Lord Jesus direct our way to you, and may the Lord make you increase and abound in love for one another and for all as we do for you, so that he may establish your hearts blameless in holiness before our God and Father at the coming of our Lord Jesus with all his saints. You may remember that in chapter 2, Paul recognizes that he was prevented from seeing his spiritual children because of Satan. Yes, human efforts were involved, but ultimately, this was a spiritual battle. That's why he prayed that God the Father and Jesus would direct our way to you. Direct means a straight and clear path. Paul's journeys were anything but smooth. They were full of detours and roadblocks. He is praying for a straight flight without turbulence. Paul prayed for his spiritual children's love, and Jesus said that people will know his true followers by what? By their love. Paul's prayer for increasing and abounding love is for two groups. First is fellow believers. In the New Testament, you will find more love one another's than any other one another. This is serious business to God. Then Paul says they are to grow in their love for other people. Well, who are these others, these other people? They are people who are far from God. Now, does this mean that neighbor that drives you crazy? Yep. What about that politician who is on the other side of the aisle? I hate to break it, yes. What about that boss who is a total jerk? Even them. We are to show love to those who are near and far from God. Now, this doesn't mean endorsing or celebrating sin, sinful lifestyles, or their worldview. But it does mean showing them compassion and empathy while scattering the seeds of the gospel. Then Paul prays, so that he may establish your hearts blameless in holiness before our God and Father at the coming of our Lord Jesus with all his saints. This is a prayer for holiness and righteous living. Now, it's true that we don't perform for God's love or acceptance. Whom God calls for salvation, he loves unconditionally. But his grace is not cheap and should not be abused. As Paul said, you can do anything, but not everything is profitable. He prayed for living life in the Spirit to be set apart for God's purpose and calling. This should be our prayer as well. So here's my challenge for you today. Consider these areas of Paul's concern: loving believers, loving non-believers, and living a life reflective of our salvation. Which one do you struggle with most? Why do you do this? I want you to identify it. Clarify why this is a struggle, and then ask God for his help to improve on it. How we love and live is evidence of our salvation. So let's take Paul's prayer to heart and begin to live out the grace and love of God in our lives. When we do this, friend, we will win the day.